Donald Trump's response to COVID-19 was not only late, everything that he did following COVID-19 has been a complete and utter disaster. And he's blamed everyone for his own failures, including the press, China, you name it. Now he's blaming the intelligence community for allegedly not doing enough to warn him about the severity of COVID-19. So Trump has insisted that the intelligence agencies gave him inadequate warnings about the threat of the virus, describing it as not a big deal. Intelligence officials have publicly backed him, acknowledging that Beth Sanner, the analyst who regularly briefs the president, underplayed the dangers when she first mentioned the virus to him on January 23rd. Now, keep in mind that on January 23rd, there was still a lot of misinformation about the pandemic, and China was still suppressing some of that information from the general public. But since then, we've gotten a lot more news, and it's been clear that Trump has been warned on multiple occasions about the severity of the virus, and he ignored those warnings. So I'll give you a list of all those warnings in just a minute. But first, here's Donald Trump basically throwing his own a member of the intelligence community under the bus, even though she's gone to pretty great lengths to make these intelligence briefings easy to understand for someone like Trump. Let's take a look.
January 23rd, I was told that there could be a virus coming in, but it was of no real import. In other words, it wasn't, oh, we got to do something, we got to do something. It was a brief conversation, and it was only on January 23rd. Shortly thereafter, I closed down the country to China.
So he did not shut down travel shortly thereafter. As we know, he didn't really take any action until March, and he was getting warnings as early as January about the severity of the virus. Trump ignored a host of warnings he received around that time from higher ranking officials. So you have like doctors, scientists, biodefense officials, other national security aides, and the news media warning him about the virus's growing threat. Trump's own health secretary had alerted him 5 days earlier to the potential seriousness of the virus. And let's not forget his own trade advisor, someone who I mostly disagree with on almost everything, Peter Navarro, had warned him about the severity of the virus, and he still refused to act because for Donald Trump, negotiating trade with China was more important than doing what was necessary to stop the spread of the virus to the United States. And by the way, here is one of the headlines that was published by the Washington Post that shows that U.S. intelligence reports from January and February warned about a likely pandemic. And so, Cenk, jump in. Like, it's not unsurprising that Trump would blame Beth Sanner for this, but it is pretty pathetic because, again, she wasn't the only person who had sat down and talked to him about this virus.
So I don't know Beth Sanner at all. She's a top official at the CIA. So there's a good chance that our politics probably don't match. But she came in as a second person to give the intelligence briefings to Trump because the first person was just giving him facts. And so the little child couldn't concentrate. So she had to do like a little puppet show in replacing the first guy to get the clown to pay attention. They had to put in more graphs and charts, etc. She had to. She realized he cares more about real estate deals in the rest of the world, so she would highlight those. Oh, here's an economic development in, fill in the blank. Maybe Indonesia. Maybe he's got a tower in Indonesia, and he's like, oh wait, I care about that. Okay, good, Donnie, good. Okay, now and anything else he could use for political purposes, he would perk up. So she went out of her way to frame it in a way that the little child could understand. And what's the first thing he does? He throws her right under a bus because he's such a bad guy. Now, in terms of the substance of his argument, he says, I shut down travel from China. Well, first of all, that's not exactly true. Of course, we had to let Americans back in. Oops, that's partly how the virus got in here in the first place. So it was a porous shutting down. But I'm not blaming him for that action. But think about it. If you thought it was so serious you had to ban travel from China, kind of, then why didn't you do the other things that are necessary? Like ordering masks, ordering gloves, ordering PPE, ordering tests. See, those are far more necessary, and every expert would have told you and did tell you that ordering the masks and the tests were much more important than shutting down some of the travel from China. So, in other words, you did it so you could score political points with your right-wing base and go, ah, ha, ha, it was tough on China. But you didn't actually care about the virus, and you didn't take it seriously, even though you clearly had enough information to take it seriously. That's why you took the action on China that you did.
Exactly. I mean, it's amazing how many people he's willing to throw under the bus just to cover his own terrible mistakes. But we've gone over all the mistakes, all of his foibles in response to COVID-19, his refusal to invoke the Defense Production Act. That's another example. It's his fault. He's the leader. Okay. When these types of mistakes are made, you don't look for people who work under him to blame. You blame the leader. And the leader of this country has shown a complete and utter lack of leadership when it comes to this pandemic and a host of other issues.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.